Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. On the outskirts of Aspen, Colorado, December 1993. Snow fell gently around a Victorian mansion. 8-year-old Abigail Sterling sat by her second-floor window of her second-floor bedroom, gazing at the pristine snow accumulating in the garden. Christmas was only 2 days away, although a large Christmas tree stood decorated in the downstairs living room. She had no memory of ever decorating it together. As a family, expensive paintings adorned the walls of her bedroom. Antique furniture crowded the room. Everything had been chosen according to her mother's wishes, Elizabeth's taste, with no regard for the preferences of an 8-year-old girl. The only thing that brought Abigail comfort was her well-worn teddy bear that sat on her bed. "Miss Abigail, I've brought you some hot chocolate," came the soft voice of Mary Foster, the maid. The girl turned around. In her mid-50s, Mary was the only person in the house who showed Abigail any affection. With her carefully styled gray hair and immaculate uniform, she carried herself with quiet dignity. "Thank you, Mary." As she took the warm drink, Abigail noticed her mother. Elizabeth's voice came up from downstairs. "Oh yes, of course I'm coming to the party. I'll be wearing my new Chanel. Mrs. Lorne will be there too. So appearances are everything." Her mother's elegant laugh echoed through the house. More talk of social gatherings as usual. For her father Jonathan, an investment executive, and her mother, a socialite, time with their daughter was an afterthought. In truth, maintaining the appearance of a perfect family in Aspen society was her parents' primary concern. Her father held weekly meetings with clients at the golf club, while her mother served on the boards of various charitable organizations. The Sterling name appeared in the society pages of the newspaper. Mary noticed the lonely expression on the girl's face and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Would you like to make a gingerbread house with me tomorrow? Making Christmas goodies was so much fun last year, wasn't it?" Abigail's eyes lit up at the words. The memory of making the gingerbread house with Mary last Christmas while her parents were in Hawaii remained one of her favorite memories, although little did she know that this joy would be short-lived. Dark shadows were already creeping around the manor. Every night, her father could be heard screaming. Jonathan's study, behind the heavy door, with expensive wood paneling. Her father's anguished voice broke through. "What do you mean? The deadline has passed." His face contorted at the voice on the other end of the phone. Piles of bills covered his desk. The red letters of collection notices cast ominous shadows in the light of his study. A failed property investment after the Lehman shock. $3 million in debt. Their father had invested heavily in what he thought was a promising redevelopment project. But the market crash had turned everything to dust. And now the threatening letters from debt collectors were increasing, day by day, behind their outwardly glamorous lifestyle. The Sterling family was rapidly falling apart. Mother Elizabeth immersed herself in luxurious shopping sprees, as if to escape reality. New bags, jewelry, fur coats, couture dresses costing over $100,000 each hung in the dressing room, still with their tags. Credit card bills piled up in her father's desk drawer. Servants were quitting one by one due to delayed wages. Once numbering over 10, now only Coke and Mary remained. Mary alone stayed, out of concern for Abigail. She never mentioned the unpaid wages. Instead, she cared even more for the little girl. "The child is innocent," Mary had confided in the cook. "She's the only light in the house." Then one night, Abigail accidentally overheard her parents talking in her father's study. Standing in the dark hallway, the girl froze. $5 million. That would solve everything. But could we really? We have no choice. If we don't get $1 million by the end of the week, it's all over. But shut up. This has happened because of your lavish spending. They were talking about her daughter's life insurance policy. Abigail couldn't make out the meaning of their conversation. Only the strange tension in her parents' voices remained, as fear in her young heart. Her nightmares became more frequent. On the night of December 22nd, her father suddenly announced they were going to the Rocky Mountains as a family. That's right, Abigail. Tomorrow you'll have a surprise. There was a hollow gleam in her father's eyes. Her mother handed her daughter a new camera. With a strained expression, the expensive SLR was brand new, straight out of the box. This will make wonderful memories. Abigail didn't know the cruel plan yet. Hidden behind those words, the snowy scene visible from the windows of the mansion enveloped everything, like a pure white coffin. On what would be her last night, Abigail dreamed of the gingerbread house she had promised to make with Mary. December 23, 1993, 7:15 a.m. The sun began to rise over Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado. The summit area of Flat Top Mountain was covered with 12 inches of fresh snow. From the night's bitter cold, the morning light illuminated the Sterling family's black Mercedes-Benz. Father Jonathan in the driver's seat, Mother Elizabeth in the passenger seat, and Abigail in the back. It was a rare family outing that would normally never, ever happen. Aren't you cold? There was an unaccustomed tremor in her mother's voice. Despite her new mink coat, she was trembling abnormally. I'm fine, Mother, Abigail replied from the scarf wrapped around her neck. Around her neck. Mary had knitted it especially for her the night before. But why are we leaving so early? We're going to see a beautiful view. Her father's voice was astonishingly cheerful. The knuckles of his hands on the steering wheel were white. You'll be able to take pictures of the sunrise. The car climbed the mountain road. Abigail held her new camera carefully. The lens had an anti-fog coating and high sensitivity. The film was loaded. The batteries were new. A perfectly prepared camera. At 8:30 a.m., they arrived at an observation point. At an altitude of about 10,000 feet, there wasn't another car in the car park. The Sterling family got out of their car. Into the biting wind. There's a scenic spot that way. Their father started walking with a map in his hand. He left the paved road for a narrow path with no signs. Her mother followed in silence. Dad, isn't it dangerous? Don't worry, Abigail. Her father's voice echoed in the frozen air. You're a special girl. They stopped at a spot about 500 meters off the path. A deep gorge opened up below them. They stood on the edge of the cliff. The bottom wasn't visible. Let's take a picture here. Your father took the camera. I'll take it. Abigail moved closer to the edge. The girl did as she was told. Approaching the edge of the cliff, the cold wind cut across her cheeks. Her mother stood a few feet back, face turned away. It was then that Abigail noticed something in her father's eyes. It wasn't love or kindness. It was emptiness. You're worthless, Abigail. Her father's voice had changed, cold and mechanical. But this will solve everything. A sudden impact. The strong sensation of being pushed from behind. Abigail's body slowly tipped forward. She heard her mother scream in the distance. As she fell to the bottom of the cliff, strangely, time seemed to be moving in slow motion. The gingerbread house she had promised to make with Mary. She would never make it now. Such thoughts crossed her mind. Help! With an inaudible scream, Abigail's body tumbled down the snow-covered cliff. Just before she fell into the thicket 30 meters below, the camera strap caught on a rock ledge. The shutter clicked. The flash fired. As consciousness faded, the intermittent shuddering continued. It was as if they were calling for help. Park Ranger Tom Wilson noticed the flashes. About 40 minutes after the incident. Martha, there's something flashing over there. The Wilsons were on their regular patrol. The veteran ranger's instincts told them something was wrong. Could it be a person? The rescue was extremely difficult. Temperatures below freezing, steep slopes, deep snow. But Tom and Martha didn't give up. Using safety ropes, they cautiously descended. When they confirmed that Abigail was alive, they immediately called for help. "She has a pulse," Martha shouted, but her body was too cold. The sound of helicopter rotors approached. For the 15 minutes it took for the rescue team to arrive, Martha kept the girl warm with her own body heat. The diagnosis was serious. Multiple fractures to her right arm and leg, severe hypothermia, contusions and abrasions all over her body, and psychological trauma. In the emergency room at Memorial Hospital, as doctors and nurses desperately tried to save her life. Desperate life-saving measures. The initial police investigation began. She had accidentally fallen while trying to take a photograph. The detective sensed something was wrong about the father's explanation. However, the victim could not be interviewed. No eyewitnesses at the scene. Insufficient physical evidence. 48 hours after the incident, the Sterling couple were gone. The mansion stood empty, and although debt collectors had descended upon it, no one knew the whereabouts of the couple they were looking for. In her hospital room, Abigail stared blankly at the view outside. Her memories were fragmentary, unable to recall the day in detail. Only her father's last words remained deeply etched in her heart. "You're worthless." These words would change her life dramatically. For the next 20 years, Martha Wilson visited the hospital room almost every day. She saw something special in the girl's vacant eyes. It was the possibility of rebirth, the hope of a new life. Detective Murphy would continue to investigate the cold case for 20 years, and he would hide the existence of crucial evidence, and told no one. Room 412 at Colorado Memorial Hospital. In January 1994, even as the new year arrived, Abigail's emotional wounds were still deep. Snow continued to fall outside the window, spreading a white world. On the television in the room, news of the Sterling family's disappearance played repeatedly. "Shall we get some fresh air today?" Martha Wilson's voice echoed through the quiet hospital room. At 52, she had visited Abigail almost every day since the rescue. Her husband, Tom, also made frequent appearances in between work duties. The couple had no children. "We've applied to be her foster parents." One day, Martha gently held Abigail's hand. As she told her, "If you'd like." Tears welled up in the girl's eyes. Martha had already prepared everything for Abigail. A comfortable one-story house in the suburbs of Aspen, a spacious bedroom and a study lined with bookshelves, and a small sewing room. In fact, she had 15 years building her career as a buyer at the luxury Bergdorf Goodman Luxury Boutique in New York. "I missed living in the mountains, so I came here with my husband, a park ranger." Martha stroked Abigail's hair gently as she shared her memories. "But I still have a passion for fashion." In the spring, Abigail began a new life with a new family. The emotional healing wasn't easy. Nights of waking from nightmares, sudden anxiety attacks. But Martha and Tom watched over the girl's recovery. Without rushing. "No one is worthless," Martha always told her. "You have unlimited potential." Counseling twice a week. Monthly psychiatric appointments. Gradually, Abigail opened her heart, especially the time she spent in Martha's sewing room became her emotional support. "This fabric is beautiful." Martha showed her various and vintage dresses from her collection. "Feel it. Can you feel the texture of the silk?" On her 13th birthday, Abigail was given her first sewing machine. From there, her talent blossomed. She reworked old dresses and created new designs. Under Martha's guidance, she eagerly absorbed everything, from the basics to professional techniques. In high school, she started a fashion club. She began designing prom dresses for her classmates. Her reputation spread by word of mouth, and requests came from neighboring schools. "This is truly a natural talent." Martha's eyes crinkled as she looked at Abigail's work. "I can say that from experience." At 16, she started working part-time in a local boutique. Product selection, customer service. Everything was fresh and attractive. She took particular pleasure in seeing customers' eyes light up. I get to be part of special moments in people's lives. The shadow in her eyes when she spoke was gone. After high school, Abigail attended Parsons School of Design in New York. She majored in fashion design and business. Using Martha's connections, she gained internship experience with top brands while still in school. The world is full of unseen beauty. Abigail continued to draw her dreams in her sketchbook. In her junior year, she made a decision. New information had come from the private investigator who had been looking for her parents. There had been a sighting in Mexico. However, I'm not chasing the past anymore. Abigail canceled the contract with the detective because I have reasons to move on. After graduating, she continued to gain experience. Assistant buyer in a famous department store, brand merchandiser, manager of a prestigious shop. Each experience became part of her flesh and blood. At the age of 22, she opened her own shop in a small New York alley, Soho. Sterling proudly displayed the surname her father had left her. On opening day, Martha and Tom cried outside the shop, "You've done so well." Abigail had an eye for beauty, the fusion of vintage and contemporary design, the special feeling of one-off pieces, attentive customer service. Word spread quickly and celebrities began to visit. A second store at 25, a third at 27 and a fourth at 28. When she opened her fourth store in Beverly Hills, annual sales exceeded $10 million. Vogue and other prominent fashion magazines hailed her as fashion icon of the new era. Autumn 2021. Abigail wore a white stool that Martha had knitted for her. In the registry drawer. The camera from that day was carefully preserved, and she was about to receive some unexpected visitors. Quality music played in the shop. As champagne was poured, the glamorous guests mingled. Abigail smiled softly. Martha's words still echoed in her heart. "You have infinite value." At 3:28 p.m. on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, Sterling's 5th anniversary party was in full swing. The store was packed with LA celebrities, and champagne bubbles sparkled golden. Abigail was now 36, wearing a black tailored pantsuit with Martha's white cashmere stole draped over her shoulders. She looked dignified and beautiful. The New York Times had dubbed her the new Empress of Fashion. Miss Sterling. What a wonderful party. Regular customer Catherine Lawrence approached. She had been a socialite idol, once admired by her mother. "I always feel that your taste is very special." Abigail smiled gracefully. The store's display, specially designed for the occasion, created a space that crystallized her aesthetic sensibility. The interior was decorated in champagne gold and midnight blue. Soft light from vintage chandeliers. Everything was in perfect harmony. Shortly after 3 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. There was an old, tired-looking couple, a man in a cheap suit, and a woman who had lost her former elegance. Jonathan and Elizabeth Sterling. Their appearance, marked by 28 years of deep wrinkles, had completely stripped them of their former dignity. Elizabeth looked around the shop. She remembered her bygone days of social glamour. Her eyes were a mixture of nostalgia and envy. "My, what a lovely shop," she said to a nearby employee. "I wonder whose lovely shop this is?" Abigail watched from behind the counter. Several emotions swirled in her chest: anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. Slowly she approached them and said, "Do you remember me?" The 28 years had shown them no mercy. Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. Using false names, they had lived on the run, running almost fraudulent businesses. The life they were beginning to escape. Debt collectors had created new debts, forcing them into a vicious cycle of further flight. And now, when they read of their daughter's success in the newspapers, they had come with one last hope. A new scam, using the shop's reputation, a foothold to defraud wealthy customers. But the Abigail who stood before them was far beyond their wildest dreams. "Welcome." Abigail wore a gentle smile. "Please escort these people to the VIP room." Abigail slowly poured a glass of champagne for her parents as they sat on the luxurious leather sofa. "Do you remember that day?" Elizabeth's hand shook as she held the glass. "I remember everything," Abigail continued. "I still have the pictures from that camera." She took out the private investigator's report that Martha had commissioned. It detailed her parents' new scams and the evidence, photos that the investigator had secretly kept for 20 years. "But I'm not taking this to the police." The couple held their breath. Abigail was weaving her words slowly. "The fact that you have lost the most precious thing in your lives is the greatest punishment." Elizabeth burst into tears. Jonathan covered his face with his hands. "Please leave now. Never come near this shop or my life again." There was a quiet strength in Abigail's voice. "If you do, I won't use this evidence." After the couple had left, Abigail stood at the window. She watched the hustle and bustle of Rodeo Drive. She could see the figures of her parents stumbling away in the passing crowd. Then Martha's voice came from behind her. "Are you all right?" She turned around. Martha and Tom stood there with worried looks on their faces. Even now, they continued to support her at every milestone. Abigail took a deep breath and smiled brightly. "Yes, I'm all right now." She took out the camera from that day, from the registry drawer. She touched it gently as if caressing it, then put it back. "Because I have my real family." The party went on late into the night. Abigail felt a sense of liberation she had never felt before. Outside the window, LA's night sparkled like jewels, and the soft warmth of the white stole that Martha had embraced her heart. This 8-year-old girl had surely walked all this way to the jazz music that flowed through the shop. Abigail raised her glass to new beginnings. After 28 years, she had finally found her freedom.